stroll the beaten path or fly the raven's wing. But as long as you're a rambling, you'll have some song to sing. We've marched in the cities, buried our heads in the sand. We have chosen sides and staked our claim. Isn't it a pity to see eternal fight for land? Isn't it a time we made a change? Oh, hard times ain't here to stay. Our sky's gonna clear someday. And there's always another way. We've all gotta find 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 another way. There's always another way. There's always another way. So there's always another way. We've all gotta find another way.
So this is the first annual King in the Making, to let our young men know that they are nurtured and loved, and we have safe spaces for them.
Kids from all over our region say, come together, meet the other young kings in the district, learn from one another. We had the Say Your Name event for the girls, and they wanted to find how can we find an event that honors young men in the district and Region 2 as well. Recognizing that we are all young kings, what does that look like? Giving them something to look up to, but then also doing what boys do, finding ways to compete, participating in some virtual reality.
Some people might think to be a king means you have to dominate other people, to be at the highest level, you know, you have power over everyone. But to me, I think a king means you help out, you try the best you can, show effort in everything you do, and lift people up to do better.
To me, what being a king is just being your own person and being a leader.
I think anytime you have an opportunity for them to be celebrated, provide speakers, provide presentations from COSI to the City of Columbus to the Mayor's Office to the Deputy and the Sheriff's Department, and just a number of administrators and people from the community who actually came out to support this event.
ICE Mentors here, which is a partner of Columbus City Prep for Boys, who's coming and talking about character building, male etiquette, you know, how we treat the ladies, right? Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am.
My mom, she pushed me, she support me, she just tell me what I need to do to go on in life. The best mom ever, I could ever have.
Met with some of the younger kids, talked to them, really found that to be really interesting.
I've experienced many things, and one thing I've learned is how to socialize and communicate in difficult situations.
Being a leader, taking ownership of things that you have done.
I am a king, I am educated, right? Recognizing that these affirmations are imperative. The world already sees us one way, and our goal is to control our own narrative, but there's nothing that can stop us from achieving our goals.
I'm not a follower, because a follower can lead you into trouble and end your whole career. And I don't want that to happen to me. I want to move on and get a scholarship.
You was picked for a reason, and to really appreciate the others who helped you be in the spot that you are in now.
I could be a role model by doing the right thing, showing integrity, being service-minded, correcting people when they're doing the wrong thing.
There are other men here in high positions that are role models for these young men to say, here are the possibilities, here is what you can think about post-high school.
And there's no way we can do it individually. The needs are too great, but collectively we can make a significant impact. I hope that the event grows beyond just Region 2, just due to the fact that we're all now operating in isolation, but we're coming together collectively to do what's best for kids. Because, you know, my favorite poet once said, if there's no hope for the youth, then there's no hope for the future, i.e. Tupac Shakur.
I'm smart. I'm a young man. I'm an educated man. I am a king. Being able to remind themselves of that when you're having hard days, when the assignments are too hard, when the work doesn't make sense, when you fail a test, we embrace failure, understanding that at the end of the day, I am a king. And that's the message that we hope they take with them.
with CCS for almost 15 years. When I first started, I was an instructional assistant for the ESL department. I did that for about 8 years. Then I moved on to helping with first and third grade for a few months. And then I landed in my favorite position, pre-K, and I've been there for about 7 years.
I chose to work in Columbus City Schools because it is the school district that is responsible for my education from K through 12 and is responsible for the education of my children K through 12. And so I have an affinity with the district, and I wanted to come back and contribute because of the experience that I had within the district. I work in a special needs program. So one of the most rewarding experiences is just coming in, working with our children who don't have language of any kind and teaching them American Sign Language so that they can communicate with us, and seeing them verbalize when they don't have anything to begin with.
When I get to have my pre-K promotions at the end of the year, you know, the kids are in their caps and gowns and they get to move on to kindergarten, and it's like celebrating everything they've done all year. It's a great moment every year. It's like I can look forward to having that memorable moment. I'm the first impression that our parents and caregivers and students have for CCS. I'm that first stepping stone for school. So I feel like I have a lot of impact. Like if I can make their first year with us great, then that sets them up as they continue on. So I'm a big believer in the impact of.
Probably one of my most rewarding was when I received the Channel 10 Classroom Hero. I also was a nominated Teacher of the Year in the Linden area. And just watching children grow and go off to college and come back to me, so that's really exciting. I think the work that I do and the time that I put into each individual children prepares them for the future, prepares them for whether they're going to college or not going to college, just so that they become great citizens.
You know, I came here when I was 18 as an immigrant, and you know, the district, I went here to the district, so as a student, they helped me out, you know, ESL student who don't speak English. So I just felt like the teachers were very helpful, and you know, now I just want to pay it forward. I just want to help other kids just like how my teachers helped me to be where I'm at today. You know, being the first person to graduate in my family was very hard for me to kind of grasp everything that went to it. But my teachers were there from day one to help every single minute. And one of my teachers even drove me from school to the administration office to make sure that all my papers are in and, you know, everything is set so that I can start school the next Monday. So I felt like that was so poignant, how the teachers cared about the students, their success and things like that. So I just felt like, you know, hey, this is what I want to be. This is what I want to do, you know, just help kids like myself who need help. Because if it wasn't them, I would not be sitting where I'm at right now.
The diversity. There are so many opportunities in Columbus that other small towns don't give you. We have a lot of resources here, but just the diversity of the families and the people that live here.
For the early childhood educator who's considering a career in Columbus City Schools, do it. We will come rally around you, and you start somewhere, but that is not where you end up. We will grow with you, and you will be surprised at the amount of professional growth and personal growth that you will have working with our children in this district.
Time for school. Have a good day at school. I love you.
Math is everywhere you look. It's in everything you do, and it can be fun to use. Won't you join us on today's episode?
Hello and welcome back to Math Everywhere. I'm Renee Harris, your math magician, helping you to see the magic in math. Today we're spending some time at Oakland Nursery with summer experience students from East Linden Elementary School. We're going to see what kind of math is involved in planning and preparing for gardens. Come on, let's go inside. So, look what I found. A nice little bag of Beet Detroit Supreme seeds. So when we're thinking about planting gardens, we have to have a plan on where we're getting started. And that plan first involves what kind of seeds are we gonna need for planting. Now the cost of this bag of seeds is $2.79. But take
What about you? Yeah, that's true, yeah. That's a lot of my research. It's like, how do we put what we know works into practice? So I'm trying to...
Dr. Lucky, do you want to introduce yourself quickly at the beginning?
Sure, I can, yeah.
Okay. Hey, Danielle. All right. You ready, Mr. Williams? All right. The Policy and Governance Committee will now begin. Mr. Williams, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Ingalls?
Here.
Mr. Cole?
I am present.
Ms. Ellingson?
Present.
Dr. Lucky?
Present.
Dr. Lunsford?
Present.
Ms. Smith?
Present.
Mr. Vogel?
I'm here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The committee will now take a look at the minutes from the September 8th, 2025 Policy and Governance Committee meeting. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at and review the minutes? Any corrections? Hearing none, the committee will vote to approve the minutes. Can I motion to approve the minutes? Do I have a second? Second. Mr. Williams, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Ingalls?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Ellingson?
Yes.
Dr. Lucky?
Yes.
Dr. Lunsford?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Vogel?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move right into item 3.1 on the agenda, which is the artificial intelligence policy progress. We know that we have been discussing the need for an AI work group, technology, AI policy. Actually was raised to us by one of our educators about a year ago now, and excited to see that we have a work group and a team really digging into this issue and thinking about it critically so that we can put forward a policy that makes sense for our district, the way that we're educating our kids, and also will not have to be updated every single time there's a technology innovation. So I will go ahead and turn it over to our CIO, Mr. Lockhart, who will give us an update on the work group.
Well, thank you, and good evening. I don't know if I'm on here. I've got a red light. Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Chair Ingalls, committee members, and everyone for the opportunity to update you on the status of the AI work group policy work. So this fall, we solicited volunteers to join the K-12 AI work group based on this charter that you see in front of you, that the K-12 AI work group is established to explore, evaluate, and guide the responsible integration of artificial intelligence technologies into K-12 education. The group will ensure that AI tools and practices enhance teaching, learning, and operational efficiency while upholding ethical standards, data privacy, and equity. Artificial intelligence is changing the K-12 education by giving teachers better data, giving students more personalized learning without replacing the human connection that great teaching requires. The work group also agreed on the rollout plan timeline. There's a brief summary that's on the screen of what those dates look like, broken down by quarters. And this is just a summary of it. So the first quarter we're ending now, which is the planning and foundation. Phase 2 is scheduled to go into policy development and capacity building, which will run between January and June of 2026. Of course, the IT guy would have technical problems. There we go. All right. So the reason the work group was established was to reinforce the idea that AI is not just IT. Let's see if my transition works here. AI is all of us. While the AI revolution is driven by computer technology, its influence extends deeply into everyday lives. As the transformation grows, it will profoundly shape our pedagogy and the way we approach teaching and learning across the public school district. And I'm going to ask whoever's in the back if they could just advance the slide since this iPad is delaying. So next slide, please. So that creates the necessity of a diverse AI work group. We have over 50 participants at this point and still growing, including staff, support staff, classroom teachers, library media specialists, managers, curriculum leaders. This group also includes individuals with various amounts of and support for expansion of AI, which I believe is vital to success of the rollout of such a disruptive technology. So we intentionally sought out not just persons that were technically savvy, but ones that on the survey said they really didn't use AI much at all, because we want to make sure that we're fully encompassing everybody in our district as we roll out not only the AI policy, but the AI framework that we will use going forward. Next slide, please. We have started meetings and have met twice as a group so far, with the work continuing between meetings. We were scheduled to meet last week, but because of the calamity day, we had to reschedule. So it's now scheduled for next Tuesday. So the work continues. Next slide, please. During those meetings, the AI work group adopted the charter and the timeline. The work group also started to inventory the various systems that we are currently using in the district that are AI enabled. By tapping into the collective knowledge of the work group, we identified several tools that individuals in the group may not have been aware of, and what you'll see on the screen is a little word cloud of some of those different ones that already are in use in the district that are AI enabled. Next slide, please. We have two examples listed here. Talking Points, which provides real-time translation for communications with family. The advantage of this is now with the AI integration, it used to be a translation, you typed it in, you waited for the translation, you could send that communication. Now this allows actual real-time for text messages and the other ways that we communicate. iReady is also providing adaptive assessments, personalized instructions in math and reading, which ties in with the board goals, that allows for differential learning in the same classroom setting for different student levels. It's not a speculative technology anymore. AI is already improving literacy, math proficiency, and student engagement in measurable ways. Next slide, please. So why now? We've been talking about this for a little over a year. I've got here about a year, so came in the door talking about it. We started some movement, and then the legislature in the summer released new law, so commonly known as House Bill 96, that included in law the Ohio Revised Code 3301.24 Artificial Intelligence Policy. A little in the weeds, the first numbers 33 indicates that it's a Title 33 legislation which focuses on education and libraries. So that's why you may not see some of those things specified in the actual revised code, but these are focused and targeted towards schools and libraries. The A division is directing the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce to develop a model AI policy for schools by December 31st, 2025. Division B requires schools to adopt an AI policy by July 1st, 2026, with the option of simply adopting the model policy as the school district's policy. Next slide, please. So at the request of this committee, drafts were created based upon the current Neola templates that will be presented to the committee tonight. Pass those down. The Neola template modifies the staff and student acceptable use and safety policies to include a section on use of artificial intelligence tools. So that would be our current policy 707540.04 for staff use. It also gives it also has a policy for student use 7540.03, which uses some of the same language. And for students, it gives the classroom teacher discretion to authorize the student use of AI for uses in research assistance, data analysis, language transition, writing assistance, and accessibility, including the caution that AI should supplement and not replace traditional learning. The Neola template also adds a new policy specifically for AI, 7540.09. This policy also references specific established school board policies that require that AI usage support safety, confidentiality, and non-discrimination. So because of the way the policy is written, kind of like a lot of the legislation is written, it actually refers to other policies. So one of the questions that we asked earlier was about the safety, about confidentiality. Instead of that actually being rewritten into the AI policy itself, the AI policy references those already established school board policies to make sure that it's incorporated into that new policy. Next slide, please. It is not the recommendation of the AI work group to adopt these policy changes that I've just shared with you at this time, based on the fact that the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce, commonly known as ODU, having a December 31st, 2025 deadline to complete their model policy. We anticipate that once the model policy is released by ODU, our policy recommendations will be modified to reflect the focus of the model policy. This is also reflected in our original work group timeline. The key isn't whether schools adopt AI, but how responsibly they implement it with guardrails, transparency, and strong professional training for staff. Next slide, please. In the interim, the work group will continue our cascade of work in meetings as laid out in the rollout plan. We will continue to listen to the diversity of voices represented in the work group and the district stakeholders. We will develop not only an AI policy that represents the values of Columbus City Schools to present to the school board for consideration, but also develop the supports, professional development, and curriculum tools to support the pedagogy. Last slide, please. And that is the presentation. Are there any questions?
All right, thank you, Mr. Lockhart, I'm surrounded by doctors all the time, I'm so used to it. But thank you so much for that presentation, and thank you for this exercise of putting together language that we can see kind of where you all are thinking. We know you're not asking us to adopt this tonight, and we heard from the presentation that we're going to be waiting for that ODU release at the end of the month, and then the work group is going to take that release and really make it for CCS. And so we'll look forward to that. But as you're developing these things, I appreciate the presentation and I appreciate the information because I think it's important for us as a committee who will eventually be evaluating that work product to kind of stay up to speed with where you all are thinking and developing in the space as well. At this point, does the committee have any questions for Mr. Lockhart? All right.
Well, I'll ask a question. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
No, I'll ask a question. So as we continue to work, hearing what you said, what would you like to hear from the work group in between? Would you like to see notes from our meetings, or you tell me as a committee how you would like for me to communicate to you the work that's going on in between these quarterly meetings?
That's a really great question. I will pose that to the committee. What would be helpful to you all to hear? We heard that the development of the committee or of the policy will be over the next 6-month period. And so what would be helpful to the committee to hear from this work group as we contemplate whether or not the policy serves the needs or if we would make any recommendations? Mr. Cole, did you have something?
Yes, please. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think one of the things that would be very essential is just identifying what those salients are, those takeaways from each of those discussions. And being able to align them with kind of guiding principles that the board shares, values that the board shares. For example, safety. I was really happy to see language in here that accommodated for that. But are there other further considerations around student emotional learning space? How AI can be some sort of contribution in protecting that space or identifying challenges or situations with students in that space. I'll use an example. I don't know that it's AI related, so to speak, but there's a system called Gaggle. There's a system called Gaggle. Other school districts use it. As a former employee of a former district, we use that Gaggle system when students put something into a homework assignment or shared a comment or a thought with another student or even an adult professional. If that came up as some sort of question around that student's emotional health and wellness and stability, this was something that was immediately made available for knowledge sake to administration, and administration along with the counselors took immediate action. That's just an example of what could be any number of them. But I think that figuring out how to align your salience to, where this fits into either questions that we have around these values that the board shares about AI, or how it enhances them, I think will be very helpful.
Dr. Lunsford.
I think it'd also be pretty helpful. Excuse me, sorry, it's the allergy season.
Yes.
I think it would be pretty helpful to understand what kind of student involvement was part of that work group, whether it was through survey engagement or whether some students came in and gave advice, or what their involvement was in the creation of it.
Very good, very good. So to address both issues that were raised, kind of like the presentation, AI is embedded in so many of the tools that we use. Auditor O'Connor had asked for some information, and I actually had to redirect him to our curriculum department, who has actually already done a lot of great work in this area with the tools that they've purchased with the eye on that student safety and that student enhancement, which is why I said AI is not IT. IT is all of us, because they're already working in that space because it's already so embedded. So we are looking towards how to use those tools to enhance. You heard me use the word pedagogy a couple times in there. I believe that pedagogy should drive the technology decisions and not technology driving the pedagogy decisions. So President Cole will absolutely look at that. And then to answer your question, it's actually on the agenda for our next meeting, the one that we would have had Tuesday. I put it to the group about how we can engage students, because I think their voice has to be heard, has to be part of this discussion, as well as you saw the diverse list that we have there: classroom teachers, administrators, people throughout the building, and not just the IT department. I can make sure that the flashing little lights keep flashing, but the real work that we do is that person-to-person contact in the classroom with those teachers and with those students. So we absolutely are recruiting and soliciting their input and information so that they feel part of the process.
Any other questions or suggestions?
Can you talk more about the kind of makeup of beliefs around AI of the committee members? I'm just curious if, as I would say with most things with AI, it's good to have a balance of people who are critical of it and people who are proponents. Can you talk about that balance within your committee?
Yes, yes. So intentionally, we recruited and I asked people to invite persons to join this work group that had all levels of experience. So during the very first meeting, we did an online survey of the group that was there, and the answers varied. One of the questions was, how often do you use AI? Multiple times a day, maybe a couple times a week, maybe once a month, very seldom. And we had multiple very seldoms on there, and that was empowering for me because I want those voices to be part of this conversation. We also have AI, I'll call them AI detractors, that are skeptical of AI, and they are part of this group also, because we need all those voices at the table so that we're addressing all of our staff. If we just have a bunch of cheerleaders that are talking about AI as the next great thing, then our policy and our professional development will only focus on a narrow group. So it's intentional that we do have persons that don't use it much, aren't familiar with it, and that we have people that are a little skeptical of AI and saying, you know, how is this really going to work in our school district? So I hope that answers your question. Thank you. Yes.
Any other questions?
Yes, I just wanted to know, I was interested in the note in your charter about exploring how AI tools can support operational efficiency. And I haven't read through the policy samples thoroughly yet, but I, in a quick glance, can obviously see that a lot of this has to do with teaching and learning, as it should in a school system. But I'm curious if you do have something about operational efficiencies in here. AI can be helpful for facilities teams, learning about which buildings are using a lot of energy, or just various things like that. So are there applications in here about that quite yet?
So the simple short answer would be no, just because the policy itself does not talk at specific technologies and or applications. There's room for those things, and actually some of those things are already being used now, like we talked about. For the classroom use, we have iReady and some of those things. For the professional staff, we have Microsoft Copilot. I'm sorry, I was having a lapse here yet. Copilot. So there are tools that we already have available to the district. There's also been some professional development training that's taken place in there. I think the urgency is on the policy, though, to make sure that we have those guidelines in place so that as we're deploying specific technologies, it has to fit with what the school board has decided is that safe space for usage. You'll see in here it talks about confidentiality. So if we are deploying AI technologies, we need to have insurances from the companies that they're not going to use our data beyond what we're contracting them to use that data for. In our IT department, we already have some AI-enabled applications that allow us to monitor our network, both from a cybersecurity safety point as well as an operational functioning point. So we already have some of those. You just won't find that listed here in the actual policy itself.
Board President Cole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that's a wonderful point that you bring up on the operational side. To that effect, how does that, if at all, incorporate internal audit and the risk management aspect of that? So you unpacked a little bit of that by introducing, you know, the constant monitoring, if you will, those things that you have the ability to look at and kind of monitor the system. But does it beg the question that there should be something baked in policy that says we do some sort of timely kind of update, whether it's annual, whether it's semi-annual, whether it's on some kind of timed, you know, monitoring of the system in a way that helps us understand what risks are and how we manage those risks. The last thing any of us wants to see is a situation where the school district is taken hostage for the information of children that's protected, and it costs us, you know, millions of dollars, or anything, God forbid, anything else horrible. Without having baked something in this policy that says we need to regularly, in some sort of timely kind of basis, monitor and assess where we are in terms of managing risks.
Chris, I can take that. So what we do is we'll do our annual risk assessment. We've already incorporated AI questions into our discussions with department leaders to see if they're using AI, how they're using it. If they're not, maybe we can suggest some areas that we've seen and some tools that we've seen that helps them monitor and identify risk. So we've already incorporated that into our quarterly meetings with department staff. And we will still do our annual risk assessment to stay on top of controls that are necessary to make sure we're protecting the district.
So then you would be amenable then to the idea of incorporating something into the language of the policy itself that says the board will require the superintendent or whoever that direct report would be to continue ongoing assessment of risks or risk management best practices of blah, blah, blah.
Maybe the administrative guideline might be the place for that.
Okay.
And I would be fine with that. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. I think that's something, Madam Chair, that should be considered for this policy.
Great, thank you.
And I'll add one more. Even in the draft that we presented, I mentioned that it actually references other policies that are currently active board policies. So for one of them, it says that you'll reference policy 8351, which speaks of security breach of confidential databases. So some of those protections are, again, part of the thought and part of the process of what we're doing, as well as some of the procedures that we put in place as a district, some of which came out from SB 29 and some of the requirements that we have contracts with all of our providers that have student data. Well, we've now rolled that over to, all of our systems, that we're reviewing those contracts for all of our systems that we're getting and making sure that those protections are there. Again, one of the biggest leaks is our AI or our data being used to train AI. So we review those contracts with that lens of saying, our data is our data, and you can't use it for any other purpose, especially not to train your other AI models on our data. So it's part of what's in the contracts, it's part of the school, what the school board has already elected, and it's always on our mind to make sure that we're keeping the district safe.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your presentation. If the committee has any questions, as always, you can email me, and I will make sure to get those over to the team, and we'll get as much information to you as we can. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and move on to item number 3.2. So 3.2 deals with our quality points. There is a policy about quality points, and in fact, we will be looking at that, as Ms. Noble will explain to us in item 4.2, for a suggested change there based on change in the law. However, the board has asked this committee to examine the quality points administration and the quality points policy, which adjusts grades for students based on certain activity. And so I'm going to let Ms. Noble explain to us what is quality points, how it works. And I don't know if your presentation also incorporates 3.3, the update on VCAP or APEX. So that's great. We'll get to that. Graduation requirements 4.1. But I will go ahead and turn it over to you because I know you have a couple items on this agenda, and we'll get started and go from there.
Thank you, Chair Ingalls. Let's start with quality points update. And I think that the specifics we'll get into in other policy meetings. So this update will give you just what work has been happening. The Joint Committee chaired by Phil Hayes, who is here tonight, Dr. Keith Harris, and Dr. Brian Morton, which has joined us, has been meeting since August with teacher representatives to review the current quality points process and provide feedback on the relevant board policies addressing grading. The committee has held multiple meetings and is making progress. The committee is looking at moving away from quality points as there continues to be feedback from teachers that the calculation is confusing and not easily assessed using the student information system. They are studying the impact of using percentage average except for the final grade value on student grade point average GPA. The committee is currently going line by line through the relevant policies, using track changes and marking recommendations for future policy committee review. They report to be about halfway through their policy review and expect to have recommendations completed by January 28th, 2026. The Quality Points Committee would like to present their joint recommendations to the Policy Committee following the January 28th completion date.
Great. All right. And Ms. Noble, do you have offhand what policies exactly we're talking about so that the committee can look at those? Or do you have someone here who would like to explain to the committee exactly what you're...
Dr. Morton will be happy to.
Thank you, Dr. Morton.
Good evening, everyone. I want to make sure I understand your question completely. We are looking at Board Policy 5421, which is really final grade determination for our middle school and high school. And we're just looking at our overall review of the full policy, and we'll be making a determination as to whether or not we will recommend moving forward with quality points or doing a shift utilizing a percentage average of our percentages per quarter.
Thank you. At this time, does the committee have any questions for Dr. Morton or for Ms. Noble? Board President Cole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for giving us this update. What do we anticipate the impact to be on student grades as a result of this? I don't want to put any words in anybody's mouth, so I just want to ask that question. If I need to unpack, just let me know.
I think that there will be positive impact, but I think we have to allow the committee to complete the review and come back to us with what their research has stated. Later tonight, you'll see a policy that we're going to adjust based on ORC and a requirement to that grading policy. That will give us a little bit of preview of what quality points looks like in the weighted scale. But I think it's fair to let them continue on with their research and come back with us. But I'm sure that they'll come back with a positive impact for students.
Okay, and Madam Chair, thank you. What is the gap? What is, if there were a challenge question to this policy change or amendment, what would that challenge question be in a way that gives us a clear idea of what is the gap we're trying to close in changing this system over?
Hello again.
Yes, sir. My favorite principal, my favorite former principal.
That's right, that's right. So one of the things, when we're looking at the gap, we want to make sure that there is clarity and transparency in the way that students' final grades are being calculated. Right now, there is still some inconsistent ways that are looked at when it comes to our grading. And what we want to do is our students know from the grade book to the actual input of grade in the actual transcript, what their grade is going to look like, with minus all the extra calculations that has to actually happen outside of the computer screen, and then all the extra checking and all that that comes into play. So it really is going to provide us with a lot of consistency, and it's also going to align us with many of our other fellow districts as well, as quality points is not a measure that is frequently used throughout the state of Ohio.
Okay. And then my last question, Madam Chair, and I thank you so much for your patience. The timeline, you and I had a brief conversation about the necessity of timeline for board action. What is the timeline that we're looking at here? You guys have some initial continued discovery work to do and analysis and problem-solving work to do to recommend to the committee, then subsequently raise to the board. What's the timeline?
I think the committee hopes that this is taken to the board table before the end of this school year. Because you would want to start a new school year with a consistent grading policy. Changing right now would be disruptive.
So June 2026.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I think his question was also going toward policy 5121 is item 4.2, so we're jumping around a little bit. But there is a recommendation to this committee that I understand the administration is saying is immediately needed. Can we just go ahead and explain what that is? Because it is the same policy and we're talking about two different things. It's a little confusing.
If we can pull up the presentation, we'll go back to VCAP and we'll go to this policy if that would be helpful. If we pull up the presentation, we'll quickly go through what is required to change in the current grading policy to make sure that we are compliant.
And Ms. Noble, to be clear, are we now, so we have talked about 3.2, and the committee is welcome to ask more questions, but because all of these are so intertwined,
They
it's
are.
difficult to take them separately. So 3.2, 3.3, and 4.2 is kind of the space that we're wading into right now. And the C tags relates to 4.2, the change that is recommended to this committee in item number 4.2. So just for those following at home, we're kind of doing a combination of 3.2, 3.3, and 4.2. And we'll try to make it as clear as what we're talking about as possible when we're diving into those discussions.
So we're skipping ahead just a bit. So I want to make sure that we are grounded in what the land of acronyms and education, CTAGs, Career Technical Assurance Guides. CTAGs essentially are awards college credit for career technical coursework taken in high school or at a career technical organization, an institution, must successfully complete the approved course and earn a qualifying score on the corresponding end of course examination to be eligible for a CTAG credit in college. So what came in September to us, 30th, was the Ohio Revised Code. And essentially what this states is CTAG courses identified in CCS are weighted just like AP courses on a 5-point scale, which is super exciting for the executive director of CTE and Workforce. A great opportunity for our students that are in those programs to continue on at our community colleges, in our universities, and get that credit before they actually go. What we want you to be aware of is the impact in the district of this. Any student who has completed an applicable career technical education course will be awarded a weighted grade. Class standing will be recalculated based on those courses, and it applies to all students currently enrolled in high school and does include any courses previously taken. So listed on the presentation are all of the career fields and the courses in those career fields, which are at 83 courses that are currently offered in CCS that are CTAGs. So exciting for the district that we're in the spot that we can say that we have 83 CTAG courses right now that are going to be weighted just like an AP course.
Are we on the right slide? You're referencing the presentation, and I just want to make sure we're all, oh, there we go.
Yep.
It's hard to see a little bit.
But realize that this is not a district choice. This is Ohio Revised Code. The state determined this would happen. We found out in the fall, and we are now here. With the help of Dr. Klein's team, we're ready for the recalculation when the semester is up and students have earned those grades. It will take a GPA recalculation, so there will be communication assets going out to all stakeholders of what this means.
Okay,
So that is the grading policy.
Yeah.
So the policy change is adding CTAG in with AP in the policy. We are not tonight changing quality points or the grading policy midstream. We are just becoming compliant with the state and adding CTAG in.
So that's tonight.
That's what it is, yeah.
So the update that I gave is what will be coming from the joint committee later, but we felt it was imperative that this comes before the committee and goes to the board table so that we are compliant before that team moves forward with the grading policy. So those changes can be incorporated in the team's grading policy work that's coming.
Okay. So Ms. Noble, I'm going to attempt to summarize what you just said in another way. I love when people try to do that to me. I'm sorry, but I'm going to try to do that. So what you did with item 3.2 and what Dr. Morton did is talked about quality points and the work group that is putting together recommendations that will come at the end of January, but will come to this committee probably at our March meeting, most likely. That's the next one scheduled, unless something changes and we have one sooner for whatever reason. But probably the March meeting is when it would get presented to policy and governments. So it is not the recommendation to this committee or the ask to this committee to change the quality points policy, because the work group is working on language for that change. What we do need to change immediately is adding in the reference to CTAG in the quality points scale where AP is mentioned.
Correct.
So that we are compliant with state law, which passed in September and is coming into effect. And so the recommendation tonight is simply to add in CTAG to that current policy, knowing that we will be revisiting that policy almost immediately for its substance. But what we're asking tonight is not so much of a substance change, but instead a change to become compliant with the law, which says that it will be on a 5-point scale. Is that correct?
Perfect.
Okay.
Madam Chair, may I ask?
Dr. Lunsford.
So that would be technically just on the second page, 2 of 4, that would just be technically those C tags only, nothing else changing in the policy. Okay.
So, in an effort to try to stay compliant with Robert's rules and keep this in order, I'm going to leave that for when we get to 4.2 and we can make a motion and have discussion about whether to recommend that to the board. But because it is a little confusing and it was referred to in the quality points and we're going to come back to it, I thought it would be helpful to just address it right now. We'll come back to it for an official recommendation to the board at 4.2. But to stay compliant with the way that we've done the agenda, we'll stay on quality points. Does anyone have any questions about the work group or any of the work that is going into the actual substantive modification of this policy or the work group or any of the presentation?
Of 5421.
Oh, good.
Sorry, of 5421.
Of 5421, yes.
Go ahead.
I think it'll be very helpful moving forward. Dr. Morton, you did a good job of explaining what the intended outcomes are and how they are to benefit students. I think that's important to shape narrative around that. As good as we are at compliance, I think it's even more of an advantage, especially because this relates to students and they are just as concerned about this as you and I are at the table. I've had these weighted and unweighted conversations with students about their GPAs. So I think that we need to really talk up what the benefit of this is intended to be for students in the process. That's going to really be helpful moving to the board in the future.
Just had one observation, which may already be on the working group's radar, but as I read this policy and then also the one about graduation requirements, I noticed that on the graduation requirements side, it allows students to earn credit by testing out or demonstrating mastery of course content among a list of options. And I noticed in this policy on the section regarding incomplete grades that it only provides, even for those who have excessive excused absences we're talking about here, that they must do all work that was missed, all coursework, and anything that is not completed is recorded as failing, and the course grade would be calculated accordingly. And so that just raises a question of congruence in my mind of why on the one end would we say you can demonstrate mastery or you can test out, please be excused and have your credit, versus someone who has some legitimate reason for missing school having to go through every exercise provided for by coursework as opposed to having that same option. So I just would love if the work group would consider that, and maybe it would land back in a policy we look at later.
Great. We got a thumbs up. They will consider that and get back to us. Great. Any other questions about the work group on quality points? Dr. Lunsford, did you have something? Sorry. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Noble. We will go ahead and move on to an update about VCAP and Apex. Again, this was a recommendation or a request of the Board of Education to have some substantive discussion about our VCAP and Apex, I want to say policy, but there actually is no policy on VCAP and Apex. There is a practice. And so the board would like to better understand that practice, whether that practice is effective, and what we can do to improve in that space. And then also just the question of, do we want a policy? Do we need a policy? And so I will go ahead and turn that over to you.
So this evening, I'm going to try to give a very quick update on VCAP and what it is. And then I think, again, looking ahead into the new year, that we will revisit this because there is not an actual policy. But tonight, I think it's important to talk about what is VCAP. VCAP, again, our acronyms.
Okay.
Nope. Virtual Credit Advancement Program is a district-run initiative designed to provide students with flexible online pathways to earn high school credit. It supports both credit recovery and credit advancement using platforms like Edmentum courseware to deliver standards-aligned instruction. VCAP emphasizes mastery-based learning, allowing students to progress at their own pace while meeting rigorous academic expectations. So important in this work as we look forward to identify who uses VCAP in the district. For sure, students needing credit recovery, acceleration, or flexible scheduling. Counselors who identify eligible students, approve VCAP requests, and monitor progress. VCAP leads who manage enrollment and work with the district office and oversee logistics. Teachers of record, TORs, who grade work and issue final grades. Special education VCAP teachers who align instruction with IEPs and provide individualized support, and matriculation coaches who monitor progress, set goals, and support student engagement. In full transparency, common issues with VCAP that the work group, the joint committee is discussing: enrollment confusion across students that sometimes remain enrolled in student support courses after transferring schools or programs. Roster misalignment. Teachers of record may be unclear about which students they're responsible for grading. Time on task concerns. Auditors and staff may request whether students are spending sufficient time in coursework. Inconsistent communication between schools, VCAP leads, and district staff, leading to delays or missteps for students. Course duplication. Students may be scheduled for the same course in both VCAP and traditional settings. And what the work group and committee is addressing. Policy clarification. District staff are refining guidelines around enrollment and teacher of record assignments. Improved data tracking. Leads and coordinators are using progress reports to identify students close to completion and streamline support. Cross-role communication. Written communication is provided regularly to counselors, coaches, and teachers of record to clarify responsibilities and timelines. Auditor alignment. Executive summaries and policy statements are in development to articulate rigor, mastery, and time on task expectations. And system schedules. Leads are reviewing rosters and course overlaps to ensure students are correctly placed and supported. So at this point, this committee is looking at all facets of VCAP and determining what and prioritize what are the next steps to improve this program, working with our internal auditor and multiple different departments in the district.
Great, thank you. Internal Auditor O'Connor, did you have anything to share about the work that you are currently engaged in?
It sounds like most of that is going to be taken on by the committee. The thing we have to do is make sure that the procedures that they put in place are effective. So we'll develop a process to monitor that from our perspective, as well as ensuring that the committee has a way that they monitor it on their end, so they don't have to wait for us to get to it. So.
Okay. And Ms. Noble, I'm going to ask you to do this. So if someone is sitting at home and they're like, that was a lot of information, I still don't really understand what we're talking about. Could you, in just a couple sentences, explain what VCAP and APEX is, and then what the work group is attempting to achieve?
So APEX was the right way to put it is the program that was used last year to address some of the concerns.
And what is it?
If a student has failed a course and chooses to recover that credit using APEX last year or courseware this year, it is an online platform, and it's the content that we align with our curriculum office. And students go in, take pre-tests, they go in, they learn the content, they test. And there may be a teacher of record around the district that is grading all of the English 9 students that are enrolled in recovery. The other part of it that we don't always talk about and highlight is the acceleration piece. So our students that may want to engage in coursework early because they want to engage in something later on in high school, determine, we're going to take this course early. You don't have to sit for the class to take the course. So they may do this during summer school, they may do this after school, but a lot of that can be done at their own pace, at their own time. But there are certain pieces of VCAP that have to be done with a teacher. And that's what we're working with our departments and the auditor with, are making sure and ensuring that there's success for our students and security for them to take those tests and that they're earning the credit appropriately.
Thank you. Sorry for putting you on the spot.
No,
with
you're
that,
fine.
but you
I had
did
to
a
think
great
about it.
job. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions at this point about what we're talking about, what we're going to be engaging in, what we're, the attempt tonight was just to introduce us to the concept of VCAP and APEX, let the committee know that there is a work group working on this topic, and then if we had substantive guidance that we wanted to let the committee know as they are doing this work, try to get on the front end of that as much as possible.
I have a question. Yeah, Ms. Noble, thank you so much for the presentation. I guess I'm curious, what kind of people are on the committee? I mean, what's this committee made up of? And then at this point, do you anticipate coming back to this committee with a policy, or what are you hoping for in terms of the outcome of this committee that you've gathered?
So that's a great question. It's not just one work group. Because of how working across schools and across our regions, it's more complex than that.
Okay.
So there are multiple folks involved. For instance, the online curriculum has, obviously, curriculum that is embedded in the program. Our curriculum office, Dr. Morton, assists with that along with our ELA and math leads, our directors. They go through and with our TOSAs and align and make sure that our brick and mortar courses align with the virtual version of the course. At the same time, there are groups of people across the district, the TORs, the teacher of record, that are trained by the VCAP office, which, along with that group, they're looking at the logistics of making sure that that communication is sent out to those teachers of record and that they're able to have the correct students on their roster, grading their assignments on time, and giving that feedback. So there are multiple different groups and departments in each of the issues that we've identified. So collectively, there are very few people in the organization that don't have a part of that in feedback in that space. It's a great example of us working across departments and collaborating and making sure that we're making the best experience for our students.
Board President Cole.
Thank you so much for this update. I appreciate hearing that there's a cross-silo approach to this that is bringing in content experts from any level of it. I'm really hoping that part of this is not to do away with at all Apex or the credit recovery model, because I think you made a very eloquent point to say that this is something that students are utilizing, and ideally, hopefully more, are utilizing to actually capture credit early to open themselves and make themselves available for other opportunities. I have a student, a former student, who used VCAP to redo a course, got a C in health, and came home with that and got heavily questioned about how did you get a C in health? You mean you might want to rethink that and take it over. Ended up taking that coursework over, got a grade higher on it, grade higher plus on it, and subsequently got his GPA immediately impacted to a higher level as a result. So this is something credit recoverable for kids that actually need it because they did not perform as well as they wanted to. In addition to that, it's something that kids can actually leverage to get out of the way early. Either way, the forgiveness aspect of it and the forethought and preparation aspect of it, I think is really important as, assets for VCAP or credit recovery, because these are just merely systems for credit recovery. I hope that we're looking at ways of, it sounds like we're just merely strengthening it, but not necessarily canceling it or taking it off the table. Am I saying that? Am I hearing that correctly?
President Cole, absolutely. I think it would be fair to say that we're looking at how to maximize the courseware program that we have currently, because it's new to us this year. Remember, it was Apex to address, we changed to courseware. But to support the board goals of on-time matriculation, there are some really powerful ways that we're investigating how to use a tool. And that is with the support of our teachers. Because we know that the most important thing to do is have our students in classrooms with teachers. So the goal is not to increase the number of courses that are being recovered. It's about utilizing the platforms, some of which Mr. Lockhart talked about earlier, to benefit us for student on-time matriculation, which goes with our graduation board goal. So that we're able to offer, for instance, in this platform, we're way too in the weeds right now, but there are flex assignments that teachers, currently our CTE teachers are investigating this to use for recovery. There are teachers and examples of where they use the content for students that may have been absent. So they assign them modules to learn outside of the current day because they've been gone. And you know how hard it is in a classroom to update students and try to teach them standards that they may have missed. So I think that there is a larger conversation about strategy of using this platform that we're getting to because of these critical conversations that we're having in improvement. And I know that we are going to reach out to our other districts and look at those best practices. I think that also, with using a platform like this, how can we support our staff that are in the classroom when we have purchased a platform like this? How else can we use it? Not to increase the number of credits earned, but increase the number of credits earned in class with teachers.
Okay, so this, as I'm hearing this correctly, and thank you again, everybody, for your patience. As I'm hearing this, what I'm hearing is one of the core issues seems to be chronic absenteeism. There's a chronic absenteeism issue. In that chronic absenteeism issue, there is trying to figure out the question of how do we align this in a way to be able to support students that still gets them in the classroom and accountable to a teacher in the classroom. So how do we still strengthen in-class instruction and not have too much support or crutch of credit recovery as that leg or arm, as that a kind of appendage? Am I saying that right?
Our goal will always be to support students in the classroom with teachers and to support our teachers with the platforms that we have. I think that's where the work group is headed when they're looking at making what the next steps may be, whether it be policy or whether it be administrative guidelines, whatever the committee ends up working towards. I think that strengthening what we currently have, because we know that we will have to have some sort of credit recovery. But I guess I beg that we haven't content recovery in the sense of content recovery versus credit recovery. We want our students in classrooms with staff.
To demonstrate the end result that there's mastery demonstrated, and there is, again,
yes,
the kind of behind and seat situation at the same time. Yes. We're addressing the issue from two different ways, but leveraging more encouragement of the student to actually be in class learning.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other, Mr. Vogel, did you have something?
Sure, just one more question. I mean, I hear you talking about this less as a sort of strict committee and more as a sort of working impact project across different areas of the administration. I also hear you speaking about the need to sort of learn from teachers in the classroom. What are the methods you're using to gather feedback from teachers in the classroom about how this is being used?
I think if we go back to those roles that we went through when I talked through, the teachers of record that are in the district and the leads in the building have an immense amount of history in working with VCAP, whether it be Apex or with Edmentum in the courseware of the current platform. And I think that that's what has led us to this is I think that teachers would tell you that they want to have the students in the classroom accountable to those standards, brick and mortar. But President Cole brings up a great example of, I got a C that as a student I might be okay with. But after I take it home, or I look at what my GPA has to be if I'm entering my post-secondary plan, I need to make that improvement.
Thank you.
So I think that by and large, teachers are at the core of this work. This wouldn't happen without our teachers of record happening. So that feedback from them to the VCAP office is there.
I just want to add that I'm a huge fan of mastery-based learning. It's cousin competency-based learning. I think it's wonderful. And so I know we're talking about pretty distinct student audiences here. And so it may be hard to answer this question, but just something you said before was about wanting to do more to connect the teachers to the students. For what purpose? Like, or what's at the top of the list? Is it about the assessments that are happening as a part of VCAP, or is it like almost sort of like a maximized, differentiated support like study hall classroom where they've got all of these students who are trying to learn something different within, or they're all in a different module? Is it for the learning side or the assessment side? Like the student accountability side or the learning? Like what is coming to the surface more?
I can take a stab at this, but Dr. Morton, do you want to try?
You take a stab, I'll
Okay. I think it's yes and yes. So I think it's a great question. And I think that in the end, when the work group is able to say that we have first been accountable to all of the things that have been identified that we need to improve, I think that what will come out is what the system strategy next steps are, as opposed to being responsive to students that have failed a course and they want to just recover that credit. It is a mindset shift across the organization of how we look at and how we course plan. So we could be here a long time talking about individual schools, individual programs, and pathways. But I think the committee is aware that there are varying levels of enrollment at high schools. So some high schools have a larger population, student population, which leads to a larger staff population and varied courses. So I don't want to say that it's not about content, but there may be a limited number in a smaller school of times to be able to repeat a course in person, just because of the number of courses that are required by our current graduation policy and a small staff. So this allows students to advance in a way in some schools that they can't, just because of the number of teachers that are available to teach. On the other side of it, I'll always tell you that I'm more comfortable with our staff assessing students than I am a platform. But I also understand that there are students that are in a class that will absorb all of the information and not test well in class. And they could take that self-paced course and test online, and we would get a different result. There's research behind both. There are students that, because of external factors, maybe they have to work. Maybe they want another alternative in the summer and not go to summer school, that they have to do this course during the year, that their motivation is to get through the course so they can engage in something different, as opposed to just acceleration. As I'm bright in a gifted program, I want to take this CCP class that's offered once at my high school. This will allow me to do that. I think long-term, it's yes and yes, and it's student by student and program by program. It's just a really difficult question to answer. But I think in the end, what the group will come down to after we solve what is in front of us is that there's a larger strategy that we can embrace and work towards that will be the betterment of students and offerings.
All right, and so to stay on time, and because we're not asking for any policy change, I'm going to go ahead and move us along to item number 4.1. If anyone has any questions about VCAP and APEX, at any point you can email me as chair, and I will make sure to get those questions over to the team for any future presentations. So we will move on to item 4.1, which discusses policy 5460, our graduation requirements. And again, I will hand it back over to Ms. Noble. You're on the hot
Hi,
seat
everyone.
today.
I know. This is, I want to make sure that I thank a large team in the district that has been working on this. Dr. Brian Morton, Dr. Duberstein, Nick Cassell, Jennifer Mead, our CTE director, our counselors who have done an amazing job of giving us feedback, our administration, our school-based administration that has given us feedback. I'm going to try to take you through a quick presentation because the policy changes are, they're a lot. So I want to ground us in the fact of that during this time, we have our portrait of a graduate and our attributes that ground us pre-K to 12 and looking at our students and beyond what they do. So this happened prior to Ohio Department of Education and Workforce changes to the state graduation policy in 2023. So the current policy that exists changed very slightly, just compliance-wise, kept everything, and we added all of the new policy that was required in 2023 from the Department of Education. So just to ground everybody in a great process, there are 3 basic parts to the current Ohio Department of Education and Workforce requirements. Cover the basics are credits. Currently, the district requires students to earn 22 credits. That second part, which is not new but has some really beneficial alternatives, is really the testing piece, the competency piece. And third, which it was completely new to us in 2023, were the SEALs, the requirement of the SEALs. So there are state SEALs and there are local SEALs. The local SEALs in 2023 required us to have, that was the policy change. The big policy change for us was adding what would be required for the local SEALs. So we are coming to you for changes in the graduation policy because of the spirit of the graduation policy that is currently that we have for the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. The first thing that we would ask, that we're asking to have changed, is the technology credit. Right now, the district requires students to have a technology credit. If you read the language, which I can for you, it definitely requires us to update, if we would keep that, what it would mean to have a technology credit. Students will be provided with a broad range of technological tools which will support learning and connect it to the experiences, resources, people outside of the classroom. Students will be able to use technologies which include computers, CD-ROM, internet, desktop, video conferencing, scanners, digital cameras, and networking devices. No matter what decision we make, we have to make sure that we're supplying our students with what is up to date. And right now, I'm not certain if we would poll them, if they would understand what a CD-ROM would be. But I'm guessing we would get some interesting answers. But I want to make sure that we're not dismissing technology. Remember, it is one of our Portrait of a Graduate attributes, but also the state at the same time brought us the technology seal. So the technology seal requires that a student earn a score equivalent to proficient on an appropriate advanced placement or international baccalaureate test, earn a B or higher in appropriate college credit plus technology course, or complete a technology course that meets criteria established by Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. So, in spirit of the graduation policy, students would identify before they go to high school or soon after entering what SEALs they want to work on. And right now, students would be able to go in and say, I'm interested to their counselor and say, I'm interested in earning a technology SEAL. What are the ways I can earn that? What are the courses? As opposed to requiring students to earn that technology credit in a course that may not be relevant to what they're going to do after they leave us. So that's the first ask. The second ask is for internship credit to be eliminated. And right now, the internship credit is absolutely not a barrier to students graduating. But we are gathering hours from students to do the SEAL along with the state's focus of work-based learning. And what we want to do is signal to students that the community service SEAL should be something that they select to earn, not be required to earn an internship credit. Right now, the internship credit in the community service SEAL, you're earning the same hours for both. So we're doing double work. Along with the idea of 250 hours of work-based learning, which is an elevated internship. It requires industry feedback, which the internship credit does not. So we are not lowering standards for students, we're offering them choice and increasing the rigor of what a work-based learning experience should actually be defined by the state.
Can I ask a question? So are you saying that your suggestion or proposal is, every student would either be choosing a community service SEAL or they would also have, every student has this kind of internship credit. It's either in the form of a community service SEAL or they're doing these work-based hours.
They could choose that if they wanted to. The spirit of the policy is allowing students to choose of all of those SEALs and what their interest is. So it's engagement in what is really their passion, what they're looking forward to do after they leave us, as opposed to having them do it. The 250 hours of work-based learning is also in the middle column of the graduation policy. It's also an alternative to competency if they don't meet the test scores. A great opportunity for our CTE students because CTE leads to engaged work-based learning.
So are we going from a situation in which everyone's required to have this one community service sort of credit, and now people are not required to have that, but you have these different options for them to get
Absolutely.
that? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Can you go back to that screen really quick? Just for some of us who are not familiar with anything you were just talking about.
Yep.
And jumped in. So graduation requirements for Columbus City School students. First, you earn your 22 credits. Then you take a competency test, which whatever, I don't know, what is that, proficiency, Ohio, I don't know whatever test that is.
End of course tests.
Okay, so there's no statewide test anymore?
It's statewide testing. There's specific courses that they have to pass end of course test and get a certain score. And if they don't, after 2 attempts, then there is now a whole framework for an alternative pathway for them to graduate.
And that includes these SEALs?
No, ma'am.
Oh.
It includes credentials, attainment.
Okay.
We can go through all of that.
Oh, no, that's not necessary. But,
We can.
because I'm not understanding the SEALs. What are those?
So the SEALs, so if you look at the state SEALs, do one of you want to attempt?
No, her joke's gonna be so dry.
Dr. Duberstein, do you want to try? Let's talk about SEALs.
Apologies, I know we're on time, but it just,
Yeah,
good.
it's a lot to
It
digest,
is.
yeah.
I can take that question. My name is Nick Casal. I'm a matriculation coach for Columbus City Schools. So the seals are one of the state requirements that was put in, as Ms. Noble said, with the cohort of 2023. So all students are required to earn at least one state seal,
Okay.
but they have to have 2 seals total. So they can earn 1 state seal and 1 local seal, or they can earn 2 state seals. So
Okay.
it's up to each student to kind of decide which seals they want to target, but again, one must be one of those state seals that is listed, one of those 9 at the top of that column.
Okay, that's just some research I need to do, okay? Because I have no, I'm looking at these, like, what are the state seals, what do they mean, was it, so yeah, that's just research I need to do, but thank you for bringing that up, thanks.
So some of the seals are dependent on grades earned in specific courses and test scores earned. Some of the seals are about experiences that students may have outside of their school day. Some of them may be about experiences that they have during the day, like a technology course, the technology seal. The graduation policy change for the state was really about not complicating, but allowing students to have more engagement in their interest in high school, as opposed to just having those course requirements and the testing requirements. What we need to look back and really reflect on was the foresight of our board many years ago, before the state had any of these policy changes. Internship was here, which some districts didn't have, but this didn't exist then.
Correct.
Same with technology. There was this intent to make sure that our students had the opportunity to engage in technology, CD-ROMs and scanners. The graduation policy wasn't the same then. So what we have done in 2023 is kept everything we already had our staff and students complete all of those things. And we have been earning, our students have been earning seals since 2023. It's not about lowering those standards. But things like work-based learning hours take time for students. And the idea was that students could complete coursework or may use VCAP for acceleration and have a 250-hour work-based learning experience during this afternoon of their senior year. So when they go to Columbus State using Promise dollars the next year, they have a high-paying job already because they've had this great work-based learning experience and the connection with a business or industry professional. That was the spirit, I think, of trying to engage the state's graduation policy. We became compliant in 2023, but now we're coming to you saying, now that we're through it, there's redundancy. And we don't want to put a barrier or redundancy in front of our students.
Okay,
So
that makes sense. So then my question would be for redundancy. If we take away, or if the technology credit was taken away, and someone did not pursue the technology seal, how would that impact, since that's not redundancy, when we know technology is so key to the future?
So most of the courses, and I will have to fact check with Dr. Morton, but most of the technology courses right now that are identified in the district are CTE courses.
Okay.
They're not going anywhere. The course isn't changing. We're not going to we didn't keep CD-ROMs because it was in a policy. We're offering new courses, different courses, courses that are engaging students. Those aren't going away.
Okay.
We're not eliminating the opportunity for those courses to exist, but we want them to earn the seal not necessarily have to take that technology course that's offered at that school if that's not what their interest is.
No, that's really helpful. Thank you. Thank you.
So ideally, at this point, there's considerable change in the policy. So it's not a complete, Mr. Barnes would have to tell me what Kyle calls it when you just rewrite a new policy, but we have taken the current policy and we have changed it. It is in tonight's meeting agenda, and we have the draft policy. And we did make one change as of today. We found two ands that were together, a grammatical error that is updated. And the last paragraph, we did change one graduation cohort in what would happen for students that graduate if they want to come back, since we have a new policy. But the hope is in this is that we are able to take feedback, adjust, and we would really like this to happen. At the same thing for the graduation, for the grading policy, this has to happen at the start of a school year. There's no exception. This can't happen in the middle of what that would, schools wouldn't let us come back to anywhere near. But we want to have enough lead time to make sure all stakeholders are aware of the changes and that we're ready to move forward.
Okay, and so when you say the start of the school year, when would your request be for the board to consider and adopt a policy ideally?
We want this to go into effect for the next school year.
Okay, so is May too late?
No.
Okay.
Why May isn't too late, this is a significant change, but please hear me, we've been doing both already for the last 2 years. So bringing it back and helping counselors and staff and administrators see that the conversation now turns to what SEALs do you want to earn? Making sure that our counselors have that time to have the conversation with students, and they're making sure that it's happening as early as 9th grade.
Board President Cole, I know you had a question.
Yes, I did. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you again for this information. You mentioned the internship hours, that seal versus what you are trying to uplift to us this evening. Aren't there, in currently getting that seal, aren't there hours that would otherwise account as work hours that could be attributed to that community service? So students have up to, 90 hours to be able to count towards that community service by simply using their jobs.
Yes.
Are there some other things, other variables that could be accounted for that type of seal that doesn't necessarily have to be an internship as you guys are trying to do it? I'm just trying to understand. If I'm saying something wrong, feel free to redirect me.
So the idea of the internship, there's two parts. Most students, by and large, and I can let the school teams talk about this, my experience when I was a high school administrator was they used their job, right? Whatever job it may be. It was just their pay stub, right? That 90 hours. The other 30 hours currently is really career exploration. So, you know, the expansion of career exploration in our middle school, the majority of our students have those experiences in 30 hours, probably before they go to high school, ideally, moving it back to that middle school space. But we really have to call into question what is the engagement of those 90 hours? And is that what we want to give a high school credit for, is to go to work for 90 hours? The state is saying it's community service. Community service is different than going to work. So the opportunity to engage is different, but also work-based learning is on our CTPD report card. So our state report card, work-based learning is actually a piece, just a small piece of that CTPD report card, which we're super proud of. We have to keep having students engage externally in our community, and doing that is by leveraging work-based learning. What we want to do is make sure that we have a policy that is in the same spirit as the state so we can continue to grow and engage our programming. Keeping a compliance measure that does not show any educational value or feedback from an employer is what we call into question with the current state policy. So I think that there are definitely, President Cole, ways that they can use the seals. And remember, there's not just, that's just what Nick shared were the limit, like that's the minimum. We want to see our students, like our suburban partners, earning multiple seals. We want them to say, we want to earn 5 state seals and all the local seals. What I don't want a student to say is, I have to earn an internship credit and I'm not going to earn that state seal. That I'm not comfortable with. But I want them to have the time to explore and engage in what their passions are. That was what the policy was set in 2023 from the state for.
But it
that
still
help?
maintains the option for a student to do the community service piece.
Go to
Again,
work.
I'm just one of those parents.
Absolutely.
We're some of those parents, and there are many, some of whom are even sitting at the table right now, who have kids engaged in things that are community service-based very early on in their, academic lives and childhood lives that could also account for that 120 hours of community service. But you're talking about not necessarily eliminating it, just adding something else as an additional option.
Community service seal is a requirement that's one of our seals. What we're asking for is that the required internship is eliminated.
I thank you. I thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Yes, Ms. Livingston.
I just saw one note in the marked up version, and I just was curious about it. Page 4 at the bottom, the part that references dropout prevention, reduction, and recovery programs, that CCS shall provide them. Is that a reference we're removing in the policy, or is something regarding our work? Or maybe has the law changed? What's the substance of that strikeout?
Tell me one more time where it
It's
is.
on the bottom of page 4. It's the second to last paragraph. Columbus City Schools shall provide in accordance with section 3313-603F of the ORC dropout prevention, reduction, and recovery programs and services for all eligible students in preparation for high school graduation.
It was required before. It is not state minimum now. It's not required.
Is CCS it's no longer providing that, or?
We're not changing any of our programs currently based on this policy. It's not like the policy is going to change those programs. There are specific programs that we could speak to each of those, but that was required in policy at some point, and now it is not.
I see. Thank you.
But to your question, because I think it's a very valid one, is this something that could otherwise precipitate a decision made by your work group that could come to us to say that we would otherwise no longer provide that, whether it was from a budgetary recommendation, whether it was from a student outcomes base, and obviously you guys would be more focused on the student outcomes aspect. But how does this impact the possibility of your decision-making around offering these types of supports for students?
I think it begs the question, should we have a VCAP policy or administrative guideline that isn't a part of our graduation policy, right? I think that that's, when you look at dropout prevention or you look at credit recovery, that's what we're talking about when we did the update about VCAP. It's not really, it really shouldn't be a part of a graduation policy. It should be very clear to our students what they have to do to earn a diploma in CCS. And if we need to have a different policy to address that, I think that that is a way different question than what is the graduation policy.
There you go. So, Madam Chair, respectfully, can this be brought to bear to the committee to be able to look at where, you know, the proper place for that particular section of that policy to actually be housed? I think that's important.
Sure.
I think it's important, too, to maintain all the supports possible to ensure student success. You very well alluded to the realities that some students teach and learn better in a classroom setting, while others may do it better virtually. I'm a parent of 3 children who did it some ways better in other ways and then better in the other. My youngest did very well during COVID, very well. My other one, I don't know how she would have done had she had to finish through that. But other children, so I think it's important we maintain that if we can.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the committee, from the committee? Okay. So Ms. Noble, again, so I'm clear, is it the request of the administration that this committee go ahead and move this to the board for future discussion? Or would you be comfortable, do you want to continue deliberation? Is the recommendation that the committee move it to the board for board discussion at this point? I'm seeing some shaking heads. Okay. So I will go ahead and make the motion that the draft of policy 5460 be moved and recommended to the Board of Education for further consideration and deliberation.
Second.
And in the discussion portion would note in the future board meeting, we would like a presentation
Absolutely.
during that time that is similar and addresses some of the very good questions that were raised this evening. Any discussion? Yes.
Does that mean that once this is moved to the board and for discussion, does it come back here eventually, or is that subject to vote?
So it could, the board could do that, or the board could consider on its own deliberation and discussion. Typically, we have what's known as a first read, which occurs at one board meeting, and a second read that would occur at a later meeting. And during the time in between those meetings, board members can ask questions and deliberate and come back to the board table with further thoughts or clarification for the policy. Or the board could decide at that moment that it's ready for the board policy. Typically, I would recommend 2 readings publicly. So what this committee would be doing is moving that to the board for a first consideration.
Well, first consideration, and during those reads at the board table, deliberative discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just want us to be safe, that we don't discuss these things outside of proper forum.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to make sure I uplift that. We don't talk about these things outside of what's at the board table. If board members do have questions, they go to the superintendent. The superintendent then forwards them to the respective stakeholders. They respond. We get those responses. They're also shared with us at the board table as well. But all deliberation happens in public forum.
Mm-hmm. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion about the policy? And again, the motion is to move the policy to the board for further consideration and deliberation. Hearing no discussion, Mr. Williams, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Ingles?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Ellingson?
Yes.
Dr. Lucky?
Yes.
Dr. Lunsford?
No.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Vogel?
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, so we will go ahead and move on to item 4.2, which, Ms. Noble, I think you get off the hook after this one. So we have had a little bit of discussion about this tonight, but could you please just remind us on 4.2 what the recommendation is at this point?
4.2 is just adding C-tag next to AP in that weighted scale to make our grading policy compliant.
And with the understanding that we will again revisit this policy after the work group has concluded its work on the quality point system. Any questions or discussion from the committee? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and make the motion that the committee recommend to the Board of Education the as drafted recommended changes to policy 5421 for consideration and deliberation.
Second.
Motion has been seconded. Any discussion or deliberation? Hearing none, Mr. Williams, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Ingles?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Ellingson?
Yes.
Dr. Lucky?
Yes.
Dr. Lunsford?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Vogel?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, we will go ahead and, thank you, Ms. Noble. We will go ahead and move on to item 4.3, which is policy 4162.01, drug and alcohol testing of employees without CDL licenses who transport students in alternative vehicles. This is a new policy, and I will go ahead, I believe Mr. Woods is online to give us a presentation about this policy and the need for this policy.
Good evening. Can you all hear me okay?
We can barely hear you.
Let me lean into my technology.
Still very quiet. Is there any way to turn the volume up in here?
Testing, testing. Can you hear me? Hello? Testing, testing. Can you hear me okay? Testing. Can you hear me okay? Testing.
Not yet, Mr. Woods. Sorry, we're trying to figure out the volume situation so we can hear you.
Oh, we miss him here today.
Thank you. Thank you, whoever said that.
Oh.
There you go.
Well, we heard you for a second.
Hello, testing.
There we go.
Well, good evening. Now I can hear myself too. So good evening, Committee Chair Eagles, Board Chair Cole, remaining committee members. I appreciate the opportunity to present this new policy or bring this new policy forward. This policy was developed with the collaboration of our transportation team, the legal team, and we have had some initial conversations with labor relations and the union. This policy is basically adding a drug testing requirement to individuals who transport students in alternative vehicles. Alternative vehicles is defined in the policy under item F on page 1 of 5 as vehicles that are designed for 9 passengers or less. An example of that is some of the white van fleet vehicles that we've added to our fleet to facilitate more efficient transportation. What this policy does, it directs the superintendent to establish a drug and alcohol testing program whereby regular and substitute drivers, as well as other staff members who transport students in alternative vehicles, are required to be tested for alcohol and other controlled substances. We believe that this new policy is well written, and for the fact that It does involve staff members who normally do not have CDL driver's license. CDL driver's license are usually used for those that are driving buses and larger vehicles. This allows non-CDL drivers to transport students. This law requires drug testing of those individuals. Because of that, we are in conversations with CEA to make sure that this contract does not invalidate any of the provisions of the CBA. We do not believe that this does invalidate any language, but it's important that we are prepared to discuss the effects of this law with the CEA. So I'll pause there and see if there's any specific questions regarding the policy.
Mr. Woods, when is this policy required to be implemented by the Board of Education?
Policy is required to be implemented. I don't know what the exact due date or requirement date is. I can provide that information back to this committee and the committee chair after I discuss it with Transportation Management.
Or Mr. Barnes, when is the policy required?
It should already be in effect.
So we are past compliance?
Yes.
Okay. So with that, understanding that there is more discussion to be had, I'm going to go ahead and make the motion that this committee recommend this policy forward to the Board of Education for consideration. It sounds like there is more conversation that needs to be had, specifically with our union partners, before the board actually deliberates on that policy. But I would ask that the administration do that. And so my motion is to go ahead and move forward policy 4162.01 to the Board of Education for further consideration and deliberation.
Second.
Any discussion from the committee at this point?
Can I just
Yes.
raise, because I know that so many folks are always having the question about transparency of conversation, particularly in a matter like this where further deliberation will require possibly getting some information around collective bargaining and how that could impact certain things. There's something called executive session that would be otherwise leveraged. Possibly, the board have every opportunity to put this as a matter of executive session to discuss what the possible impacts to contract or how this is tied to contract. But at the end of the day, again, the board has full authority and responsibility to discuss this transparently at the table, with exception to matters that they can go into executive session for. So I just always want to make sure that the spirit and intent of the board is always dedicated to having the right kind of conversation in all the legal ways permissible.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah. Mr. Barnes?
Yes, in regards to discussions with our union partners, please note that this policy falls under our 4,000 series, which applies to classified employees.
Mm-hmm.
And those are bus drivers, other drivers, et cetera. It may, and it is a required policy, so it may impact our certificated staff, CEA, if you will. And what has been suggested is that there be ongoing discussions, and I believe CEA has agreed to this, what is called effective bargaining, so that there will be discussions regarding any impact it may have on certificated staff. It would be minimal. One example might be that if there's a teacher who is also a coach and there's a supplemental contract, and that coach may transport some kids, so it would be applicable to that coach. So those are things that we'll have ongoing discussions with CEA.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Lunsford?
Just really quick for clarification, is there any time that staff would be, for any reason, transporting students in their own personal vehicles?
That should not happen in normal circumstances.
Okay. So the motion has been made and seconded. Any other discussion? Mr. Williams, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Ingles?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Ellingson?
Yes.
Dr. Lucky?
Yes.
Dr. Lunsford?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Vogel?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move into the next series of policies. So as a reminder, the purpose of our Policy and Governance Committee is to deliberate and bring recommendations back to the Board of Education, but we're not actually passing board policy at this committee meeting. It's the Board of Education who has the authority to pass board policy. And so when we make recommendations as a committee, it's still up to the board to deliberate and make decisions on those policies moving forward. So want to be very clear, no policy is enacted after this committee meeting. This committee is solely used as the public space in which we can deliberate, have open conversation about the pros and cons of decisions in the policy, have some formal discussion so that those discussions can then be carried back to the board. It's also helpful for me as board chair when I'm introducing with our board colleagues the policies, that I have some sense of the presentation of what our public is thinking and thinking through the language. So want to be really clear with that. And so I say all of that to say we have a number of policies left on the agenda for tonight and 10 minutes until this Policy and Governance Committee officially ends. So I want to call out that there are a number of policies that we may or may not get to in full. The committee does have the draft policies before it, so those are public for all of the public to see. And if we do not go through any specific policy tonight, any of the committee, any of the public can give feedback, and I am happy to carry that forward at the board table. I do want to call out, there is one particular policy that we have a number of committee members here for today, and I want to make sure I'm calling out the right one. It is the use of medications policy, which is item 4.6, policy 5330. Is that correct? 5336, I am incorrect. So it is policy 4.9, policy 5336, care of students with diabetes. It is a complete replacement. That is the recommendation from the administration. So I am going to turn it over to Dr. Carol Sullivan, who is online with us. And if you could give us a brief overview of the health policies that we will find in our packet, but if you could specifically speak to the item that I know that we have some folks here to provide some input on, that is item 4.9, policy 5336. So the policies that we are looking at right now include the policies listed at items 4.4 all the way down to 4.9, with the recognition that we will hear additional words about item 4.9, policy 5336. So welcome, Dr. Sullivan.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, President Cole, the rest of the committee members. I will speak to this replacement of the policy 5336. We were very much out of compliance with the current law and then the updates to law that came through our Neola. And so we agreed upon or thought it best to do the complete replacement to minimize any chance of errors, maybe cross-referencing the two policies. And the main contention, I believe, is with some language for our some of our members of our department, in that the language says that we may train other persons other than a nurse to give insulin and to administer it and then to assess the student following that. The purpose of this policy this evening is to bring us into compliance. That is wording from the laws that to put us into compliance. Nowhere it says that, but that is not the intention. The intention is not to have laypersons administering insulin. It says that we may, and we all know that the future holds unknowns to us. The pandemic changed a lot of how we practice. And we could, experience that again. And if we were down many of our nursing staff and we had to train other people, this policy would be in place to allow that. And we wouldn't be caught trying to revise the policy in time to treat students.
Okay, and Mr. Barnes, what, for the policies 4.4 through 4.9, I'm sorry, it might be 4.10, maybe I'm misspeaking. Are any of these policies time sensitive, in which case we will be non-compliant with state law if we do not take action, if the board does not take action on the policies? Could you outline those for us?
I'm sorry, could you give me the numbers again?
It'd be I believe all the health services policies are 4.4 through 4.10. Are any of those time sensitive such that they cannot be delayed until a future policy governance meeting?
Not 4.12?
4.12 looks like yes. Dr. Sullivan, 4.12 was within your work group's purview as well. Is that correct?
And which policy is that? I'm sorry.
It is policy 5341, emergency medical authorization.
That was one that we worked on, yes.
Okay, so I guess it'd be 4.4 through 4.10 and 4.12. Mr. Barnes, are any of those time sensitive?
Well, they are time sensitive in the sense that we're not in full compliance
With current law?
with current law.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I know that we have some folks here for, I want to get this right, policy 5336, the care of students with diabetes. If you all don't mind just coming forward and kind of sharing your thoughts and concerns, I will let you take the mic and describe to the committee where you're at with everything.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. My name is Jackie Broderick Patton. I'm a school nurse. I have worked for the district for 25 years. I'm also a proud parent of a Columbus City School graduate who also benefited from VCAP and credit recovery. So thank you very much for taking the time to hear us tonight. We learned about this policy change on 5336 on Thursday. So it is the policy that is the care of students with diabetes, and as was stated, it's a complete replacement. Don't worry, I'm not going to review the whole thing. There's two things in this policy. I believe our current policy, and Mr. Barnes, correct me if I'm wrong, is compliant with the ORC. It is just more restrictive than the ORC in that the current policy only allows licensed healthcare professionals to administer insulin to students at school. And so the recommended change for that is that the diabetes medication may be administered by a school nurse, or in the absence of a school nurse, such medication can be administered by a school employee who is trained in diabetes care. The change raises a serious concern for health and safety of students with diabetes who require insulin. Insulin is considered, clinically considered a high alert medication. And that means that it is, if it is incorrectly prescribed, prepared, or administered, it can lead to severe harm or death. And in fact, when I practiced at The Ohio State University before coming to school nursing, it required a 2 RN check, which is best practice and pretty much across the board at most major institutions that administer insulin. So as a district, because of the support and investment, the board, administration, the community, and CAA has made in hiring school nurses, we have approximately 140 school nurses, which well positions us to meet the needs of our students with diabetes in the safest way possible. We had a meeting today with administration about this. We were told that the practice of administering insulin will only be by a school nurse, and that wouldn't change. That the reason for the policy change was for the district to be prepared to care for students if staffing was changed or for some unforeseen reason could not be delivered. I think as to Dr. Sullivan's point. Having a policy in place without the intent to follow it leads to ambiguity and confusion. I understand the rationale for the proposed change, but feel that the implications of the change are serious enough to remove the optional language currently and address it if and when the time occurs or comes. So that was the first consideration. And then the second one is the training must only comply, I'm going to read it to you. The training must also comply with the following additional requirements. It's halfway down the page.
Page 2.
Page 2, and it's specifically number 4. So page 2, number 4, under that heading, the training. The school nurse or approved licensed healthcare professional with expertise in diabetes care will promptly provide all necessary follow-up training and supervision to an employee who receives training. So traditionally, in schools, medication administration is designated by the principal or administration or the board, not by the school nurse. My concern in this language here describes nursing delegation, which needs to meet the standards of the Safe Nursing Practice defined in the Nurse Practice Act, which sets delegation principles required by the law. Based on the overall risk, based on clinical severity of administering insulin, the likelihood of occurrence and potential for harm for students, I don't believe the school nurse would be able to fulfill the provision in the policy of delegation. So the policy states that the board or the district will determine whether staff are competent. Under the Nurse Practicing Act, only the delegating nurse may determine whether a specific individual is competent to perform a delegated task. So at that, I'm going to pass it on to my colleagues to share their thoughts. And thank you very much, and I appreciate your time and consideration.
My name is Allison Grosh. I'm a CCS graduate, and I'm also, this is my 10th year as a school nurse here in the district. I don't think I'm going to have time to go over all of the things that I was going to say, but I want to reiterate, a little bit of what she said about how dangerous insulin can be when not delivered properly. Even really tiny errors can lead to significant patient harm, like seizures, coma, and death. And let's skip ahead. So it's not really that we're being dramatic or exaggerating. It's what medical evidence shows, and it's what other districts that have allowed this have been going through. And I can give you a couple of examples. So in New York, when they implemented this, someone drew up 10 units instead of 1, which is 10 times the amount that child was supposed to get. That's detrimental. Someone in Pennsylvania, a teacher or non-licensed staff, followed the wrong sliding scale, miscalculated, leading to a severe dosing error. And in Texas, someone gave insulin without checking a blood sugar at all. And in Illinois, somebody confused insulin with glucagon, resulting in a very quickly unconscious child. So these aren't bad people, they're not careless, they just are not trained for a task that actually requires medical judgment. And the result was, rapidly unresponsive children, seizures, 911 calls, hospitalizations, terrified kids and parents, as well as a lot of litigation. And the worst case scenario is exactly what you think it would be, is a child could die from an insulin error very quickly and quietly, and there's nothing we can do to fix that. So when we talk about shifting insulin administration away from the nurses, we're not really talking about convenience, we're talking about safety. A nurse doesn't really just give insulin, we assess, we look at trends, we consider food intake, activity, illness, stress, timing, whether the dose actually makes sense in the full medical picture of the student that day. And we know the students. We know how they trend, we see them long-term. It's not something you can script out on a form or a flow chart. It's clinical judgment that's built on years of education and experience. So I'm gonna skip down a little bit more. I think that, I understand that there's, concerns with staffing cuts, and I'm not here really to discuss that, but I know that it is a factor. But the first districts that implemented this were doing so because they didn't actually have the nurses to cover it. And it was leading to kids not getting appropriate care, which is neglectful and dangerous. However, that's not really where CCS is. We're not in that position, and I'm just here to ensure that we continue to prioritize student health and safety. I understand trying to save money by shifting the medical tasks and stretching people out where we can, but this is risk-taking, and insulin errors are not small, and the consequences are often massive, immediate, and permanent. So I'm going to leave you with that.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer Young. I am also a school nurse with Columbus City Schools. This is my 7th year with this district. However, I do have previous experience in another Central Ohio school district where we did allow, the district allowed unlicensed personnel to be trained and give insulin to students. And I will tell you, it is one of the main reasons I left that district. It was something that I was very uncomfortable with, and oftentimes the people that were charged with giving the insulin themselves were very uncomfortable with it. Currently in Columbus City Schools, we utilize what we call diabetic backups. So if a nurse is not in the building that day, we have trained medication backups that give other medications. And in the same tone of that, we also have diabetic backups. They can help students dealing with high blood sugars, low blood sugars, observe, document, guide the students is what they do. But they're not currently giving insulin. Nor do we think as school nurses that they should be. Just again, because of the very scary situations that can occur. School nurses currently sometimes have multiple students with diabetes coming to them at the same time because the kids have the same lunch periods. And dealing with that concurrently with other students that are coming into the nurse office is a very stressful situation for a nurse. We would never want any of our lay people that are not licensed healthcare providers to be in those situations. Because like my colleagues have said, in hospital institutions, including Nationwide Children's Hospital, insulin is a double check. An RN, if I'm drawing up insulin to go give it to a patient in their room, another RN has to double check and make sure I'm giving the correct dose. So with all of that in mind, we just would like to see that optional language of that part of that policy be removed. Thanks.
All right, thank you all. We might actually ask you to hang in case there are questions. But I think in light of our time and what we're working on tonight, I will make a motion. I'll ask for a second, but I still want to open the floor for discussion. It sounds like there is some work that could be done on the draft of Policy 5336. I understand we have a little bit of figuring out to do on what actually our deadline is and where we must go. And so I'm going to leave it up to the recommendation, but I would ask that the administration work with our team who showed up here and displayed some real concern for the safety of our students with the change or the recommended changes to policy, and work together to craft language and bring that language before the board. And then I would ask that when it comes to the board, that there be a presentation on how the administration attempted to address the issues that were raised here tonight.
I second that.
That is my motion. It has been seconded. So now I'm going to open the floor for any discussion or questions from the committee. Board President Cole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So there are a couple of things that I want to point out, particularly on page 2, section B, numbers 2, and there's some subsequent numbers. So one of the biggest things that's a highlight regularly through this policy is indemnification. The idea that there is no civil action, that there's no degree of liability outside of wanton, disregard and, that kind of thing. But there's language out here that clearly indemnifies any staff person who has been trained and thus designated to provide these types of supports for children with diabetes. That's number one. But 2, it said, in section 2, it says a description of the task to be performed. You mentioned the backup. Would this apply to maybe only a set of specific tasks that would thus be applied to the backup that aren't applied to somebody like yourselves who are actually trained and certificated in this space? Am I making sense? Is there opportunity to have delineation between the two in a way that would otherwise be defined as a part of the task? Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Cole. The current policy delineates the differentiation of task as it relates to caring with students with diabetes. The only new part of this proposed policy is the administration of insulin. So everything in that policy that you're reading is currently taking place, and many staff members who are trained to help with the care of students with diabetes in the absence of a nurse. And those are students who are self-administering insulin. So part of what we do is work very closely with students and families and their practitioners to get a student to the point where they're self-administering and caring for themselves in the best way. The current policy supports that. The only change is the administration of insulin. There's some other changes in there that are procedural, but I don't think that in the spirit of the policy that it's
So with
concerning.
that backup, is this policy something that would require the backup to provide the insulin?
You can't require a person to administer the insulin. They have to volunteer, and that's part of the ORC. And I think Ginny shared that even the policy currently, it feels like it's such a high stake for folks who are the backups, that nurses have expressed they're having difficulty finding people who will volunteer to do that task. These are people with full-time jobs doing something else. And so they're not a school nurse, which is our full-time, job to care for the student. And so that is even another layer on top of the concern, because they could be rushing. There's many implications to that. And then the ORC indemnifies the lay person, but not the school nurse. So if I were to, in my understanding, and Mr. Burns might know more about this, but I have to follow the Nurse Practice Act. And so that trumps board policy for my license.
As per this, if I'm reading it correctly, in accordance with the Ohio law, the board and its members and school employees shall not be liable for damages in a civil action for injury, death, or loss of person or property that allegedly arises from providing care or performing duties under this policy unless the act or omission constitutes willful or wanton misconduct. Additionally, a school nurse or other licensed healthcare professional shall be immune from disciplinary action by the Board of Nursing or any other regulatory board for providing care or performing duties under this policy if the care provided or duties performed are consistent with applicable professional standards.
Right, and so the only point there is the delegation of the task. So a nurse could train a staff member and check them off on a competency, but the continual evaluation of that staff member, I believe, constitutes delegation, which then does not align with the Nurse Practice Act.
Thank you.
And there's a whole list of things a nurse has to make sure happens and are in place when they delegate a task to a non-licensed personnel.
Mr. Vogel?
Yeah, thank you, Nurse Broderick Patton, is that right? Thank you so much. Could you explain that a little bit more? Because I kind of lost track of what you were saying there. It's that you believe this is sort of a delegation of authority from a nurse that would put you on the hook for more responsibilities that you're not prepared to take on? Is that right? Under your
It's
regulations?
just, thank you, I think I understand your question.
I think
It's specifically number 4.
Yeah.
Under the training must also comply with the following additional requirements. It's just that number 4 bullet, which I'm interpreting and my colleagues are interpreting as delegation. And so it's when we bring that I'm delegating to you the task of administering insulin, then I have to make sure that you and the task that I'm delegating to you meets the requirements of the Nurse Practice Act under delegation. And there's 3 pages of things to consider that I have to consider under my license as a nurse when I'm asking you to do a task like administer insulin. And it's such a high, there's such a high level of harm that could happen that, as we shared, when we work in hospital systems, it requires a 2-nurse check. And at Children's Hospital, in some units, it requires a 2-nurse check and a physician check. That's how high stakes it is. It's, not a drug that's not going to cause harm if there's a mistake. Does that, I hope I answered your question.
I think so. And, yeah.
Finish your thought.
Well, I have another question to ask too, but if you want to respond to that point, that would be great.
Yeah, I think there's language that's being read into the policy that's not there. There's nothing in the policy that talks about a nurse delegating responsibility to another employee. First, the policy is designed with the what if in mind. What if a nurse is not available? Who else can do it? As the policy currently stands, no one else in the building can conduct that act. The policy also provides, from a training standpoint, that it's not necessarily the nurse. If we're getting delegation from the nurse doing the training, there's also language in the policy that talks about another professional health provider providing that training. Again, training is not delegation. It's never been considered delegation. It's simply educating someone else on how to do something. That's not akin to delegation.
Yeah.
Nursing delegation, it actually is, though.
That is nursing.
Yeah, that is nursing delegation.
If what I took from your comments, Ms. Patton, was that if another employee is to conduct that injection or insulation, then the nurse who trained that individual is responsible for anything that may go awry.
No.
That's not what you were saying.
No, so if I were to train you and then check you off in a point in time, a competency. And correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm going to train you, and you're.
As a nurse.
Yes.
As a nurse.
As a nurse, I'm
As
going to
a
train
nurse.
you, and you're going to demonstrate to me that you understand what I've taught you in one point in time. But number 4, as I'm reading it, says, the school nurse or approved licensed healthcare professional with expertise in diabetes care will promptly provide all necessary follow-up training and supervision to an employee who receives training. And I think probably that I'm taking number 4 out of context of 1, 2, and 3, but 1, 2, and 3 spell out, I think,
Yeah.
I'm taking 4 out of context in this example, and I think 1, 2, and 3 are important to read too. So for the policy, the supervision part, and that language, to me, reads like delegation. And I think for a Nurse Practice Act, it would too. And it's incumbent upon the nurse, not the policy, to decide if they're compliant or not. And so then the policy creates friction between administration and school nurses who I've heard from a lot since Thursday that they would feel highly vulnerable with this policy.
That's where I thought you were going with the with the supervision aspect, because I think of Danielle and how that would read for social workers, right, with licensure. And you're saying when I'm training for something, it's one thing, but when I have to say, when I'm training for it and then I have to offer some supervision, that goes into a whole licensure thing, and that goes into a whole, I understand that in that concept.
Yeah.
Nurse?
I think it's very clear that there is lots of work that still needs to be done on this policy. And so I believe my motion on the table was a long-winded version of, we have lots of work to do on this policy, and we still need to do that work before it comes to the board table, understanding that we have some dispute as to how soon we need to get this in order to get in compliance. But before we put it before the board, I would ask the administration to engage the 4 individuals who have come tonight through their union to assist us in making sure that the product that gets to the board table addresses some of the concerns, and that discussion is fully had before it hits the board table with a presentation to the Board of Education at the time at which it is presented on how the board, or how the administration has addressed those concerns in the policy at the time at which the policy would be presented. So that is my motion. It had been seconded by Board President Cole. I'm going to go ahead and ask Mr. Williams to call the roll on that motion.
Ms. Ingles?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Ms. Ellingson?
No.
Dr. Lucky?
Yes.
Dr. Lunsford?
Shoot, how many is? No, sorry.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Vogel?
No.
Motion carries.
Yes. So, and with that, I would invite that at any point, if you are having trouble, if you have additional comments that you would like the board to consider, please feel free to share those with the board members directly. Obviously, we cannot converse about policy outside of the board meeting, but you can converse with us. And additionally, we have asked the administration to work with the team to develop policy and attempt to address any concerns before it hits the board table. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Ask a question?
Yes.
Or is that out of order? I don't know. Okay. Just a request or question, maybe. You know, I heard that our visitors, at least one, had comments that she didn't have time to share, she felt. Is there a way that you can, we could ask them to share their comments that they provided? I mean, I encourage you to share those comments with all members of this committee.
Yeah.
So that we can review them in advance of the next sort of discussion of this at the full board. And then I also would request that the chair provide an update to this committee as to when this issue might come before the full board, as well as any prepared documents from the administration on these issues so that we can stay apprised of them.
Yep, happy to do that. And if you wouldn't mind, just share it to me and then I can get it out to the committee. Thank you all. Thank you for being here. And thank you, Dr. Sullivan, for being here as well. So because of time's sake, I'm not going to ask the committee to make motions on any of the remaining. I know our food services team has been here waiting. We appreciate you. But there are more policies. They are public. The public can give feedback. This committee can also give feedback at any time before any of these policies hit the board table. We will work with our legal team to determine at what time each of the policies must hit the board table, and we'll recommend to the board that the board take those policies up in order to remain compliant. But at any point, if you have comments or feedback on any of the policies that were put forward to the public tonight, please feel free to do that. Same with any of the public at home. So 4.4 through 4.13 to reflect, we did not have time to fully deliberate except for on issue 4.9. And so those remain outstanding, but we did notice the policies themselves, and they are posted on the board docs. One thing that I didn't do at the top of the meeting, which I meant to do, was introduce formally our newest committee member, Dr. Lucky. Dr. Summer Lucky has joined our committee, and we are so thrilled to have her. Congratulations on your first meeting. This was a very heavy meeting with lots and lots of content and learning. So would you like to introduce yourself to the committee formally?
Yes, hi. My name is Dr. Summer Lucky. I currently serve as Dean of Students of United Middle Schools on the West Side. Two-time graduate of Ohio State, received my PhD in Human Development and Family Science, where I studied school discipline and the impact on Black youth, actually here within the district. I heard you were a social worker. I was a school counselor, also a teacher, so excited to put what I know in knowledge and best practice into policy, because we know policy drives everything, and serve the students and the families here in the community.
We are thrilled to have you.
Welcome.
Welcome. And then, so on one bit of sad but happy news, Dr. Lunsford, who has served on our committee, recently won election to the Board of Education in Whitehall, and we are thrilled for her. But because of that, she will be stepping away from the committee in order to fulfill those duties and work on behalf of her district. And we know that she will carry on amazing policy work in her role. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to address the committee if you would like to.
Thank you so much, Chair Ingalls. Just want to say, a side note, thank you to all outgoing CCS board members for all of your efforts, all of your work, everything you put through to get us to where we are. And I also want to congratulate the new board members coming along. And then I want to tell Jesse, congratulations on a very, very well-run, important, impactful election. And I hope that you will not let that deter you from running in the future, because I think you would be an incredible asset to the political landscape in Columbus, Ohio. So I just want to make sure you know that you are valued and you do great work.
Thank you, Dr. Lunsford. And congratulations to you.
Thank you. And as Chair says, this is my last meeting. You'll get my formal written resignation tomorrow. Probably should have came. I was just doing so much. It's just been a whirlwind. But yes, going to as I start my term as a board member of the Whitehall City Schools, which is blowing my mind because it's something I never thought of in my life. It's not. I thank you all for the experience here. For those who don't know, I originally thought I was going to be on the community engagement team, and
we pushed her away.
And how did I not know that this was going to prepare me for a journey I never even thought I was going to take? So thank you. Thank you. This has been an invaluable experience. You might want to consider, many of you know my day job and with the city. I work in through the mayor's office, and through the Office of Violence Prevention, and maybe you could consider someone from the city as you're looking at replacements or whatever, to make sure that voice is still here in some kind of way, and I am impartial. And I want to wish everybody well. And we completely understand that the purpose of this committee is to make recommendations. The board is the only one who makes decisions, right? But sometimes it's like so important that some of the policies and stuff do come through here much more flushed before a recommendation is made to the board, so that it's so promising, because the great thing about it is everyone here is about the students, and we want success. And so I'll be with Whitehall City School, but just trust me, I'll be in touch, because, you know, I'm all about collaboration, and we're going to need assistance when it comes to policies, procedures, and all that other kind of stuff. So I'm excited about this new journey. Thank you for everything and all that. And yeah, in March, you'll have a new member here, and you guys will do phenomenal work. And I'm excited to see what all happens.
Thank you. We appreciate you so much. And then finally, I want to thank Board President Cole, who is one of our outgoing board members, and thank him for his service not only to this committee, but to the Board of Education. This is also his last policy and governance meeting as a board member, and so wanted to thank you for your service and offer you any opportunity to address the committee if you so choose.
I thank you, Madam Chair. Congratulations. I'm excited
Thank you.
for you.
Thank you.
This has been a tremendous labor of love for me. I wouldn't be able to do this work for the length of time that I've done it if I did not love who I serve and what I do. I'm excited that, you know, the baton is being passed to, you know, a really good group of people who understand what the concerns of children are and adults responsible for them, but at the same time, have the growth and opportunity to further understand what their role and responsibilities are as a board, not just to the community, not just to students, but also to the institution itself. You heard me allude to earlier executive session and those types of conversations under very legal pretenses that we're allowed to be able to, you know, come together and talk through and inform each other about the work and receive deeper information relative to whatever it is. But that's just one example of you representing the institution and what is best for it to be able to thrive for children and the adults responsible for children. This has been an incredible year. I just thank you all. I applaud and take my hat off to each and every one of you who have given your time and the length of your evening to us and to this work. So, all me aside, I'm not always comfortable talking about me, but all me aside, I tip my hat and pat my heart to you all and your work. And however I can continue to be of any kind of support, I'm happy to do that. Thank you. In the words of Russell Simmons, God bless you. Good night.
Thanks for coming out. God bless.
Thank you.
Good night.
God bless you. Good night.
All right, so we have a lot of work to move forward, a lot of continued conversations on a number of these policies to be had. But with that, we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and so I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Williams, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Ingles?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Aye, yes.
Ms. Ellingson?
Yes.
Dr. Lucky?
Yes.
Dr. Lunsford?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Vogel?
Yes.
We are
Motion
adjourned
carries.
at
Thank you, we will adjourn.